and welcome back for another episode of Veterans Onward to Prosperity. I'm your host, Master Sergeant Retired, AnnaMaria Bliven. And you know that the most of what we talk about all has to do with information, resources, and sources that are most welcome, especially if you're in a situation of transitioning. So, just like I said, it's Veterans Onward to Prosperity, but the day is coming, warriors, when you're going to put your uniform away and your boots away, and you are going to be transitioning in some way, right? And then here's another little tidbit. For those of you in the Army Reserve, the National Guard, you already know you have to have a civilian job to support yourself and your family as you're serving our country part-time. So my guest today is all about helping you with that in most especially employment and career development. So please don't go away. We'll be right back.
You're watching the Disability Channel, showcasing abilities.
Hi, and welcome back. Veterans Onward to Prosperity. I'm your host, Master Sergeant Retired, AnnaMaria Bliven, and I am met by another Army veteran, Joe.
Go Army.
Oh, yeah, go Army. Ooh. Hey, Joe, can you tell our audience what you did in the Army and how long you've served?
Sure. So I was in for 11 years, active duty, and then went into the IRR. After that, it was a personnel and computer systems officer in there, and really enjoyed it and all. And but I was in, I guess you'd say I was post-Vietnam and pre-9/11. That was my era there. So I was in the active duty during the first Gulf War, and a lot of it was mainly Cold War, which is fine with me. Nobody's shooting at me, but which was good. But then I had to do the transition thing too. So that was early 1992 is when I actually exited active duty and had to go look for a job in the civilian workforce.
Yeah, and how did that go?
It's full of challenges, right? And especially during that time, probably like this time, depending on how the economy's doing. I went back home and the economy wasn't doing all that well. Early 90s, they were letting off a lot of people. The big company here was IBM. And so I thought, well, I've got all these skills and I'll just go right to it, get my resume done and get a job in no time. But didn't quite work out that way. Because the jobs, either some of the jobs that they were offering me were not what I wanted to do, or others, that, oh, well, you're not qualified, or we don't know what exactly you did do in the military, but we want somebody with some more business experience, that kind of thing. So there is a transition, but I was fortunate to have some help with, from some of the resources out there, like the local, what they call it here, vocational employment reps at the Department of Labor, who were really, very helpful. And I ended up getting a job in career counseling for a not-for-profit, and that was really well.
And that was building more skill.
Yeah,
you're going
it was.
From computer technology,
right,
now to actually the skill for helping other people get into their employment and careers.
Exactly. And, veterans, like all military, bring a lot of skills to the table when they come. But a lot of it is like anything, when you do even a resume, the purpose of it is to get you an interview. And then, of course, the interview to get you the job. And it's really about marketing yourself. So you have to be able to take your skills. And, for example, nobody knew it. If I said, well, I'm a battalion S1, well, great. What does that do? They don't understand what those things are or what exactly what skills you bring. And then there's like anything else, stereotypes that exist, probably both positive and negative. And what you have to be able to do when you're looking for a job is, tell an employer what you can bring to the table, what you can bring to them. And that's where you have to sometimes be able to take those transferable skills, meaning they transfer to almost any occupation, and really highlight them to an employer so that they really want to go ahead and sit down and have a real interview with you and then offer you employment.
Right. So let's talk about this for a minute. Okay. So there was a struggle just a little bit for thinking, oh, hey, I got all these skills from the military experience. There shouldn't be any problem with me being able to get a job because I got all these skills, right?
Right.
But then they didn't have the welcome mat out.
No.
And you know what I got told? Yeah, great. You got those skills in the military, not over here on this side of the house.
Right.
So you basically have to start all over.
Yeah, and I don't like the time it was start over. You're starting something new, but starting over, like we're not going to discount those skills now. And I agree with that. I've experienced similar things. People, sometimes there's negative types. Oh, you're going to come in here and try to run the show or give us orders. And, some employers, they have a negative image a lot now. And I think it's changed over the years that a lot are actually seeking, veterans. They like the fact that they bring, communication skills, know how to show up on time, those things to the table, some kind of soft skills, as we call it, to the table. They pretty much already have. And of course, as you get into it, there's a lot of incentives out there for employers that they can take advantage of too, if they're aware of them. So sometimes you got to make them aware of some of these benefits that come by hiring a veteran. But absolutely, it's, there's some there, oh yeah, well, that's great that you did all those wonderful things. And, but they really don't care about how many medals you had on your, pocket or anything like that. They're just, what are you going to do for me now? Right.
Exactly. And now on the other side of this conversation, how are we going to be able to teach military, not just the Army, but all the branches of those folks that have to know how to use the language when they're talking with a civilian employer? So for example, I was an S1.
Right.
Well, a civilian employer isn't going to know what S1 is. But if you say, hey, I was a human resources supervisor, now they can have a reference point by which we can converse.
Right. And that's so key. And that's what I had to do too. They, like you say, some of the terminology, ops officer, battalion S1, S2, they don't know what that is. And so what you have to do is, and you can do that. There's actually, I remember when I transitioned a DOD resource where you can look that up. Okay, I'm no longer a battalion S1. I'm a human resource manager, right? Or I'm a computer specialist in this field and that, and so they certainly don't care, well, 71 Lima or whatever, 42 Al, it matters not, those right. MOSs. But when you look at what's involved in those particular occupational specialties, you can pull out of there those things that an employer would want. And there's, with some help and research, you can actually then, find civilian jobs that are almost identical in many ways, right? So right.
But it's the conversing or the communication and the messaging that has to happen so that potential employer realizes what it is you are bringing to his table or her table and wants to converse over it and, do a job interview that eventually leads to a job offer. Well, we have to break away, but after we come back, we're going to continue this conversation.
Let me introduce you to Frank Sinclair. He has a business called Dream Again Business Consulting. Frank believes that you were put on this earth for a specific reason. It's his job to find out why. If we follow the natural course of your life in your story, it always leads to your purpose.
Hey vets, you know who I am. This is Ranger Johnson, and I want to help you to get the VA disability rating that you deserve. And if you want to know more about the Ranger method, please go to championsforveterans.com and schedule a free consultation now. Stay in the fight!
Hey, welcome back. I am your host, Master Sergeant Retired, AnnaMaria Bliven, on Veterans Onward to Prosperity. And we have in our virtual studio, Joe Dirac. Dirac, yes, I spelled that. I pronounced that right. Yay!
Yeah.
Anyway, what we're talking about right now is the messaging that has to come into play as you're getting yourself known to your potential employer. And we know that we've got a lot of skill. Holy cow, I mean, we've been trained to do our job in the military, and those skills matter and they count, but we have to communicate that. So in a LinkedIn profile, Joe, how does one person accomplish that? And then I also have another question. In doing that, where in the world do they go on the internet to find out, hey, okay, I was an S1 and that's the same as human resources? How do they learn that?
Yeah, sure. So a lot of times, like I mentioned, well, in LinkedIn, you mentioned earlier too, that's really a valuable resource in learning how to do that properly. And there's loads of material on that. I always, when it comes down to it, you can always, the easy way, of course, is talk to Dr. Google. And I mean, you can find out there's tons of resources online. In fact, when I started doing this, that's kind of what I was doing. I like I say, I went to the Department of Labor. Most Department of Labors, certainly here in New York, and I think around you, will have Department of Veterans Affairs or veteran counselors who can help you with that. They do this all the time. And that's one of the things that I was pleasantly surprised to find out. There's a lot of resources out there that you can very easily tap into online. In fact, I mentioned I went into the not-for-profit world and what I was doing, and it's not all that different from what I'm kind of doing now in many ways, is, I was helping older adults find jobs, people that were over 55. I went to work for a not-for-profit that specialized in that. And no matter when you transition, there's always things that you have to do to market yourself properly. And so there's a lot of good resources out there. When I started the not-for-profit, not-for-profit for veterans, which by the way is a Veterans Vocational Assistance Foundation, which is at vetvocational.now.site. I was initially helping people do their resumes or write a resume properly. There's different ways to do that chronologically, right? Functionally, all sorts of different resumes. And again, that's just a marketing tool. So what you do is you put your effort into it just like you would kind of now with LinkedIn online. You want to make sure your profile is up to speed and that it's really talking about not just looking like a resume, but what you're going to bring to employer, what soft skills that you have, what transferable skills do you have that you can bring to the table. And when you emphasize those, truthfully, the dates and where and when don't matter as much as how you can do and what you can do for the employer. So there's tons of information out there. And that's kind of what I do with the not-for-profit now, because I found I could help more people out by serving as a connecting source than necessarily a service provider, because there's loads of organizations that are doing that now. And believe me, when you go online, you can find some excellent ways to see what employers are hiring veterans, right? You might as well go to one that wants to hire you first off. But even in cases where it comes to transferring those skills, you can actually find tools out there that will take your skill set and then put that into a civilian type of position matching. And that's very helpful as well. So you can get an idea of what's out there. But I would say there's a lot of resources for veterans. You have to kind of do your homework and you have to be willing to search. But I would start off probably at your local Department of Labor and see if they have a veterans employment rep that can help you with that.
Right. And the veteran services officers as well can help you find out who that is at the job center that is specialized in helping you convert your military occupational specialty to a civilian acquired specialty, right?
Absolutely.
And then please, folks, remember, it's in the language. It's how you communicate what it is that you have been doing and that you want to continue doing for your potential employer.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And how you translate those skills over and what you can bring to that employer. They will, really appreciate that. Sometimes you can use, the positive stereotypes to your advantage, but you can also deal with objections too very quickly, and I think it pays to do your homework with preparation and planning, which, hey, by the way, that's one of the skill sets they teach us in the military, right? Those who fail to plan to fail. So when you're doing a job search, I used to say this, if you're looking for a full-time job, that becomes your full-time job, right?
Yeah.
So very much it takes that, especially in a tight job market, you've got to be willing to do the work, to do the planning and the preparation so that you will have successful interviews and hopefully job offers coming your way. And you want to be able to do that.
So we're going to get back to your journey and how it is that you have made your path, if you will, that it appears to be now, and how you can help others along their journey as well. So we'll be right back right after these messages. Ron salutes as a LinkedIn business strategist and relationship advisor. He's the co-author of 21 Days to Success with LinkedIn. He's a guest speaker for the U.S. Army on veteran transition. Contact Ron at his website.
Mike Merwin here, U.S. Navy retired submarine officer turned entrepreneur. I turned my hobby of 25 plus years making beef jerky into a thriving small business. Made in small batches with only high quality ingredients, it's not good, it's crazy good. A portion of all proceeds helps save military lives. Order now on www.crazymikesjerky.com using code CB10 for 10% off.
Hi, and welcome back to Veterans Onward to Prosperity. I'm your host, Master Sergeant Retired AnnaMaria Bliven. And in today's virtual studio, we have with us Joe Dirac. And Joe has had a journey of his own with trials and tribulations, but also triumphs. And I refer to the fact that he is a professional business and personal development consultant. He's the president of Dirac Assets Development and the Veterans Vocational Assistance Foundation, which is a nonprofit. And he comes with us with all kinds of skills and expertise to help folks get on their own journey pathway to prosperity. So, Joe, how is it you got all into this? You did mention that the Department of Labor consultant helped you get your foot in the door post-military in career development.
Yeah, because I was basically became, when I left the military, I had to find a job. And I went there and I found, when it was nice to be able to walk into the Department of Labor. And I still to this day remember this lady, Rosemary, who basically helped me, said, oh, veterans, you go, speak to this veteran counselor. And she was very, very helpful, took the time and went through and explained a lot of these things. Plus, at that time, and I guess they still do, you get a day ahead on the release of some of the job orders that were coming through. So we had that conversation. I said, man, what she's doing is great. And I'll never forget, she said, well, you'd be good for this. And I went on the interview, got the job, and ended up staying with that company. Like I said, I went into, which was kind of ironic, but I went into career counseling sort of thing, helping people find jobs. Yes, it was not just veterans, it was older adults who face challenges too. And now I can say I'm part of that demographic because I wasn't. I went to work for this company and for over 20 years, and I got into the career counseling and helping people find employment. And, it was very rewarding for me. I guess, working, I guess I've always been about service, whether it was in the military or the civilian life, it was all about giving to people and helping them. And I found that career counseling was one way to do that. And then, as things turned out, I, in essence, was there so long, I retired from the company I was with. And I said, okay, I still am not going to go just play golf or anything like that. I wanted to continue. And so I started my own business, or, in consulting and career counseling and the like. And that's when I also decided I still have a passion for helping my fellow vets out. And I said, well, let me start a little not-for-profit to do exactly that. And so that's the Veterans Vocational Assistance Foundation that I mentioned. And it really serves mostly as a connector. We have a website and you can get some resources. So if people need help, I'll be glad to kind of direct them to some of these resources that are out there. But that was kind of my journey. I mean, I became a global career counselor as part of that, helping older adults. And I really like that, interaction of helping people and helping them better their lives. It's nothing more satisfying to me than to see somebody who's really, whether you be a veteran or not, you're unemployed. And one of the things you always kind of, and I remember even coming out of the military, we were, well, I'm a soldier, I'm a veteran. We always label ourselves of what we do as our occupation. Obviously, we're a lot more than that. We're also fathers and mothers, in my case now, grandfather. But and a lot of other things. And part of it is just starting to think outside just what you did before, but thinking broader in terms of who you are as a person, a holistic approach. Because when you do that, then there's all these different skills come to play, not just your occupational skills, but also what other transferable skills you might have, personal skills, right? You might have educational skills. You might have all these other things that you learned from the hard way. And listen, and those are still valuable. And you, just like you said, you have to be able to put that into a language that an employer can understand. And they will. They'll get it if you tell them how to and what they can do, and they can see the value, how it's going to benefit them. Then they will most likely make you an offer of employment, because they're going to realize that. And it is a little, there's some tricks here, because again, some people maybe have negative stereotypes. That's the problem with stereotypes in general, whether it was dealing with older people. Some people thought, oh, can't teach an old dog new tricks. They buy into these things. Some people, oh, you can't tell a soldier what to do. He's always going to give you orders. So that's, and those are people, they put those stereotypes, those prejudices in there when they don't have knowledge. You have to give them that knowledge at that interview and let them know that, wow, this is what I want. This is how I'm going to help you. And these are things like, for example, one of the things we always said is, well, oh, you're overqualified. No, I'm fully qualified, right? And so the employer has to be able to realize that. And that's really what it comes down to, is being able to tell someone what you bring to the table, what skills you have, how you can benefit them. And believe me, I know there's a lot of employers out there that love hiring veterans. They really do. So
you sound like you know how to take a negative and turn it into a positive, because you just said, hey, if you've been told, oh, you're overqualified, well, that's a negative. But if you respond to that by saying, no, I'm fully qualified. Well,
Absolutely.
Now we just turned that over and reframed all of that situation into a positive.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's where the listening at the interview becomes very key, I found, because we have to listen for the question behind the question. When people say, oh, so, they'll typically, most interviews, they'll ask you, do you have any questions? And you better have questions, and it better not be something like, well, how much time off do I get?
or when do I start?
Yeah. Right. When do I say that'd be better? Or, what skills, like I would ask when they would ask me that, I said, yeah, do you have any questions? I said, yeah, what skills do you find would be most valuable for this position that I'm applying for? Now, if they tell you, guess what? Now you know where to go with the interview, right? So there is a lot of that, and you have to listen very carefully at the interview for the question behind the question, because all employers have certain concerns, and they want to make sure that you're going to fit in, that you're going to fit into the organization and you're going to be able to produce. And if you listen, and the old saying is what, we have 2 ears and 1 mouth, we should probably listen twice as much as we speak. But when you do speak, you wanted to speak with authority and confidence that, yes, I'm the person that can bring those skill sets to, your company and organization. And, it comes with practice. But, I've found that a lot of the skills that I learned in the military were very transferable. And and also when you kind of take a military approach to even your job search, identify the problem, come up with alternatives, and then hot washing when an interview goes, you can really do quite well at that. And I'm just so, adamant that, when I hire and want to work with people, I look for veterans. I actually prefer to work with fellow vets. And then, as a consultant, I don't do a lot of hiring so much, but I also look for people with an entrepreneurial spirit. And that's another option, by the way, for veterans. There's a lot of opportunities to start your own business because you have some of those skill sets. So, and there's ways to do that. There's programs here in New York, and I'm sure around the country, where you can actually get some assistance through Small Business Administration and the like, if that's where you want to go too. So don't kind of box yourself in. Well, that's all I can do. What I did in the military for the last 10 years, whatever that amount of time was. Think a little outside the box. I think that goes a long way in seeing what opportunities are out there in the civilian life, because you can do a lot of things if you have the right mindset.
That is so true. So true. So thank you so much for that, Joe, and for taking some time out of your busy day to come on the show and being our virtual studio guest and giving us such great wisdom. Great wisdom. Hey, you know what? If there's nothing else that anybody took out of this, I hope they were paying attention with how you switched a negative situation into a positive one. That's the price of admission, if you will, for this episode. Thank you so much. And I will be wrapping this up and when we come back from these messages.
America lost 22 yesterday. She could lose another 22 today. When is enough going to be enough? At the Veterans Ranch, we work with veterans, first responders, and their families through horses. The money you donate helps us expand our programs and help get that number down to 0. Help us serve the ones that served us all by going to project20,000.org and pledge $22 a month.
I'm Zach Damon, host of the Disability Channel Detroit. Please join us at the Disability Channel and watch the Disability Channel Detroit for all your Michigan disability information.
Joe and I know exactly what it feels like to be out there in the job market, filled to the gill with your skills, feeling as though with all of your experience and your skill set, there shouldn't be any problem with getting a job. But we know that there's a challenge. But can I let you guys know something? It's not a showstopper challenge. It's an adapt and overcome challenge. Does that ring a bell with anybody? I sure hope so. Because when you have that challenge and you feel as though, I don't know, I don't think I'm going to make it. Well, that's not adapting and overcome. Come on, folks. Think in terms of adapting and overcome. And like Joe said, there's a lot of resources out there. You just got to tap into it. Okay? So speaking of tapping into things, coming up in our next episodes, we're going to continue to show you how you can tap into a lot of other things that are going on and how you can make your own path post-military come to be. But in the meantime, until we meet again, be the best you can be.